Traveling has never been this simple in the Gambia. Oh yes, you don't need to visit the GTSC depot just to get a ticket. Just download the Yona Wallet app today and enjoy hassle-free bookings. With Yona Wallet, you can buy your GTSC bus ticket right from your phone, anytime, anywhere. From Kanifing to Dakar, Dakar to Banjul, or up-country routes like Kanifing to Basse and Basse to Banjul, Yona Wallet has you covered. No queues, no stress. Just safe, fast, and convenient ticketing at your fingertips. Choose comfort. Choose convenience. Choose GTSC with Yona Wallet. Yona Wallet. Your money, your way. GTSC. Moving the nation forward. For more information, please call 1124 or 221-1668.
Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
I get it. Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyenji.
Okay. Korsa nsila ID soto.
Ah, sa soto. Sorry. I get it.
Bijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariya.
Ah,
mbare ki janna nun kunu bara tariya.
Ah, jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbari ya bere. Ha. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato nim fo bolong blabe to.
56 branches mola sota Gambia jang.
Ha?
Ha. Gambia kono anin Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannam number 1 di nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wala nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi ma nin domorol ni fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je.
Ha e wo moyo diat ha.
Apelenta
ni wo ka ni lafta nyelen kendol e binaji.
Yalo bu kanyi la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Abaraka.
Jah Oil is Gambia's leading dealer when it comes to fuel and has made it a duty to satisfy our customers at all costs. Vehicle owners and drivers need not to worry about getting quality and affordable fuel anymore. That is the reason we have our branches spread all over the country for easy access. For good and clean fuel, the only place to go is Jah Oil. Your need for good and durable petrol, gasoline and kerosene has been covered by Jah Oil, so you need not to worry. Walk to any of our branches and get served to satisfaction. With Jah Oil, your satisfaction is our priority. That is why we have branches at your doorstep to make accessibility easy for you. With our professional and friendly staff, we can assure you satisfaction. To get the best fuel for your engines, the only place to go is Jah Oil. With Jah Oil, it's all enjoyment. That is why we are offering you low charges at our stations on the Coastal Road and Banjul. For more information, you can call 770-8080, 322-9070, 714-7273, or 387-1321. Jah Oil, the pride of the nation.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Brunch on Kerfatu Live. This is our show that looks at headlines, opinions and news items that made the story in the last 1 week. Well, this week, one major story, of course, that dominates and still raging on is the release of the Special Select Committee of the National Assembly to look into the disposal of former President Yaya Jammeh's assets. Now, this followed, of course, protests in the streets that pressurized the government to come up with a declaration, and Parliament also setting up an inquiry into how the assets were handled. After the Commission of Inquiry, better called the Jammeh Commission, discovered the assets, what followed next is what the Parliamentary Committee investigated. Well, they came out with a lengthy report, and that will be the base of our topic today. And with me to do that discussion is Madi Jobarteh. He is the Executive Director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, one of the most active civic society organizations in this country, which had over the last year or so keep a good eye on human rights and transparency matters. Mr. Jamano, I must congratulate you on the launching of the the center itself the last time. That was quite successful.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Maybe before I go delve into the topic today, I'll begin by asking you, how do you manage to keep an eagle eye and so consistently on matters of human rights, corruption, and matters that really you think, and people of right thinking think that's afflicting our country? People wonder, where do you draw the energy from?
Yes, even yesterday somebody was saying that.
Yeah.
To you and many people, it may be fascinating. But for me, I don't feel any pressure or sort of expending any energy. It just comes natural, because that is the very rationale for the creation of the EFSCRJ, that's Edward Francis Small Center.
Yeah.
That the missing link in the Gambia's governance and development process from 1965 to date
Yeah.
is accountability.
Accountability.
Yes, it is not that we don't have educated people, we don't have the institutions, we don't have the laws, or we don't have the resources. We have all of that immensely.
Yeah.
But what has been missing is accountability.
Accountability.
Yes, that is public officials elected or appointed into public office perform their functions according to law, according to professional ethics and standards.
So you do believe if we had done that, or
we would have been,
the successive regimes we would have.
we would have been at the same level with Singapore or above.
Yeah.
Because the only reason Singapore is where they are, or Japan or Sweden or Qatar or Dubai, is accountability. It is not like they have more people or more intelligent people. It's not like they have more laws, or it's not like they have more resources, or it's not like God favored them better than us. The only difference between us and Singapore, despite our different locations, it's just accountability. And so whether it's in service delivery, whether it's in law enforcement, whether it's in, any service or good that has been delivered or any action or decision that has been taken, at the end of the day, what is supposed to be done is not done or not done well, and then there is no consequence for the failure, for the inefficiency, for the dereliction of duty, for negligence, and so on. So that when you come to, let's say today, you said we are going to discuss the parliamentary committee report on Jammeh assets. When you look at it, it's an accountability problem.
Exactly.
It's an accountability problem
from the very beginning.
From the very beginning, which is why we are here. It was an accountability problem why we had Jammeh. All right. The 1994 coup, it was the failure of accountability during the Jawara days. And Jammeh's entire time, it was a problem of accountability. And that is why in 2016 came, we removed him, we put in Mr. Barrow, and the same accountability problem persists until now. So in that context, Cham, I mean, you and I must have known each other now for the past 30 years, in the media. And, like me, there is nowhere you have not gone to in this country to cover issues.
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, political issues, social issues, economic issues. I mean, nobody is aware of Gambia more than you, Jam. Yes, because we've been there. Absolutely. So after 30 or so years, Jam, if I sit today, and I'm sure if you do, and anybody at our level you do, you look back, you reflect, you realize we don't have a problem of money. No, we don't have a problem of good laws, good policies. We don't have a problem of institutions. I mean, remember when Gamtel started here, what was being said?
One of the best in the continent.
Today, the finance minister just told parliamentarians
That's
billions given to state enterprises, and they don't pay back, they don't do the job they should do, and nothing happens.
Indeed. Okay, I take it that this is why accountability takes center stage in the work of the center.
Accountability is the center, the front and the back, the left and right. And it is not just accountability, but offensive accountability.
Yes. I see recently, you went as far as establishing a hotline for people to give notice of human rights violations or maybe accountability issues, etc. And people were wondering, wow, is Madi now going to be a self-made institution now, a self-appointed police, or what? What do you make of that?
Well, it's accountability work. And Cham, we are just limited by resources and capacity. If we have that in full, this country we will not leave this country, to be the same. No, because there is a lot of abuse going on in our country, not just at the level of the state, but also at the level of our society. Sexual and gender-based violence, for example. Abuse of power in our communities, in our offices, all right. In various places, people discriminated because of their gender or because of their disability, because of tribe, ethnicity. Cham, if I tell you, every day at the center, we receive a call, people land issues. I'm sure you've seen some of our letters to institutions, land issues, employment problems, people having cases in court, struggling to get their cases heard, are dragging people, getting even judgment and no enforcement. People are facing discrimination at home. So abuse, it's like abuse is the culture of the Gambia. Yes. And so this hotline is created for that. And this is why I said if we had more resources, our idea was to have every if village is possible, like or town, or ward or constituency or district, but to have everywhere in the Gambia human rights monitors and defenders equipped with phone lines and necessary gadgets, so that they are watching, they are receiving, they are documenting, they are pursuing human rights cases.
So quite apart from, if you get these reports, quite apart from publicizing them or highlighting them, what sort of solutions do you offer? Because you are not authority, you are not the police, you are not the Attorney General.
Yeah. So the police, the Attorney General, the National Human Rights Commission, the National Assembly, the State House, and so on. These are state institutions. They are created purposely for accountability. That is what people got to realize. The role of every, even Minister of Education, is for accountability. It is not just merely to deliver education services, but to render account in how you deliver that. And in that process is when you also increase your delivery and efficiency. So accountability is in the heart of the work of the state. So therefore, when we receive our cases, we analyze them, and we realize this. The police has to be contacted. We write to the police to say, look, we have this case. You got to look into this case. But for example, recently 14 communities in Jamano East sent a delegation to us about the Babun Island.
Okay.
All right.
What did they say? What happened about?
Because Babun Island has it's a tourist site, but there is a whole chimpanzee rehabilitation program. All right. But under an arrangement that proceeds from the Babun Island, 10% of it would be given to the communities.
Okay.
And for decades, the members of community, they are not seeing that. And they've done frantic effort because they've seen so many letters to Department of Forestry, to Department of Wildlife, to their local leaders down there, councillors, or, inquiring about this money and complaining about it, and nothing has come out. So they heard about Edward Francis Small Center, and they approached us. We immediately wrote a letter to the Department of Forestry, to the Department of Parks and Wildlife, and copied the National Human Rights Commission, the Ministry of Justice, the Inspector General of Police, the Ministry of Environment, to say this is the situation. Why is the MOU you sign with these people? Why are you not giving them their money? And so this is the solution. And now those departments, they have reached out to us, and they are responding to our letter. And so at the end of the day, we just want justice to be done. That there is sharing, because these are people's heritage. This is their collective heritage. The Babun Islands is within their community, so they have to benefit from it. Or that somebody cannot come and then benefiting from it, and that is right in the middle of their community. So we will pursue this to the extent of even going to court. Okay. On behalf of this community. But that goes for any other thing. Not long ago, a lady also approached us about maternity leave. For example, yes, because institutions, private institutions, public institutions, civil society organizations, they are here. Some of them, they don't want to respect human rights. So, women working in your institution, they are entitled to 6 months maternity leave. Maternity leave. And you refuse to give them. So the area of issues we have been receiving. So our solution is we will write letters to these institutions to act. If they don't act, we can advise the person, go and take a lawyer. If possible, we can take our own lawyers and sue those people. All right. If need be, we can organize a protest with them. All right. So there are multiple ways we can name and shape. All right, and publicize the issue so that the whole Gambia is aware of it, because sunshine, they say, is the best disinfectant. So make it known. So this is the approach, all within the framework of offensive accountability. Yes. So
when it comes to governance issues, I mean, most people observe what they say, they criticize and say, why is it that your perspective seems to be always in line or aligned to that of the opposition? That is, people in government would say, why is it that always when they talk, their views are aligned with the views of the opposition?
Okay.
Do you come across confrontations or criticisms like, oh, Madi is a politician?
Okay. In the first place, that is not unlawful act. No.
Yes, so politician.
Yes. The opposition. So people have perceptions and opinions, and they're entitled to it. That is fine. I mean, but from our perspective, we do not spare political parties, either in the opposition or the ruling party. But of course, a lot of our focus would be on the states. You know, because that one has a special responsibility beyond and above everyone else. So yeah, I mean, that's a primary duty bearer. But that doesn't mean we support or align with any political party, especially opposition. We don't consult them or seek their advice, or we are not under their control or direction. But then the issues, we can share positions on issues, because as long as it's a matter of justice, it's a matter of rights. We don't own justice or rights, it's not a monopoly. So if we see a violation there, we say it's a violation. If the opposition see there's always a violation,
that's just a coincidence.
That doesn't mean we have consulted. It's because out of their own assessment, they realize it's a violation, and our assessment is based on the Constitution of the Gambia, the laws of the Gambia, and international laws. That's what drives us. That's what guides us in the actions that we take. So but I think rather probably those people need to rather look at the issue than to try to figure out, okay, EF Center is saying the same thing like UDP said, or DOI said, or GTC. But let us look at the issue. What is the issue in the first place? And I think those supporting the ruling party and any other party, what should interest all of us is the adherence to the rule of law, to human rights, to justice. So regardless of where we support, who we support, that should be our primary obligation, our first position. So that if need be, we should stand against our own party because they are, position violates human rights and justice and the rule of law. But at the end of the day, people have a right to say what they want to say. That's why we also are established to defend rights, and part of that rights include freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, and we may not agree with some of them, but also they may not agree with us. But that is what we all need to have a peaceful, safe, and prosperous society. Yes, that's the point.
All right, let's get into the matter at hand. The report by the Special Committee of the National Assembly that looked into the disposal of the assets of Jammeh, which were seized after the Commission of Inquiry established and recommended that those properties should be returned to the state. We understand there have been various actions were taken to have them disposed. But this report has come out and have generated a lot of reactions. And overall, it has been a reaction that really pointed to great failures in the process. Now, let me begin by asking you, you said accountability. You've already drawn what brought us to, you said lack of accountability. But now, from what we have had from the Jammeh Commission, and the work of the Select Committee, are we any nearer to knowing exactly how these assets were handled? Generally.
Big question. Good question.
Yes. We will go into the specifics.
Yeah. I mean, I think generally we are not. We have very many specific understanding or appreciation of how things went, but generally, because that would have to be exposed or be given by the real actual actors, players. And we've seen through the commission's work during the hearings, every one of those actors, whether they are commission members or they are Minister of Justice members or they are people from the judiciary and even others in the private sector who came to testify, everyone more or less embellishing his or her role.
Okay.
Yes, and they may state a number of facts and say a number of things that are right, but at the same time, everyone justifying the decisions and actions taken. So that in itself tells you, therefore, still something is missing. But Chairman, I think at this point, at the onset, let me commend the Republic and their editor-in-chief,
Yes,
Mustafa
the
Kiram,
motive,
yes, and highlighting indeed the value, the importance of the media. And I hope their story would make us appreciate the role of the media, and particularly when the Constitution itself says in Section 208 the role and function of the media to hold the state accountable on behalf of the people. So they need commendation for that. And then, of course, Gala, you mentioned Gala earlier, to make our young people realize that ultimately you are the leaders of today. The idea that you are the leaders of tomorrow is meaningless. We are the leaders of today. And what kind of society we have, good or bad, depends on what kind of youth we have in terms of where they will stand. So we commend the Gala and the government youth who came around them to protest and demand transparency and accountability, therefore forcing the state to do what they should have done a long time ago. Yes, and also having said that, I know I'm not usually very kind to the National Assembly, to the rest of the state, institutions, because I always hold them to account. But I must commend the committee that did this inquiry.
Yes.
I think at the very beginning, doubts have been expressed in their capacity. I've been in conversation, yes, and leadership, the composition of the committee, but also the capacity, both the committee and the legal team and the staff, whether they have the expert knowledge, skills in the forensics or the legal issues and so on, to be able to figure this out. And I must say, even for myself, much as I had welcomed this whole thing and supported it, but there were times at which in my head I try to figure out, like, how would this turn out? Like, but I must say the way they came out is excellent.
It's excellent.
Yes, they've written a very comprehensive report. I'm writing my own personal account of this report, which I publish in these days. But to say the quantity of information they have gathered, beyond what the public, the hearings that came out through the hearings, but it appears the team, their legal and staff, technical team, were doing a lot of digging in the background. So the quantity of information, but the quality of information also obtained is amazing. And then the presentation of it, but above all, the analysis.
That's what I'm trying to say.
The analysis, the way they argued issues. I am really impressed, and it tells me that our parliament now should be categorized at the level of those centuries-old parliaments, like the U.S. Congress or the British Parliament. Because
if a critic like this, a critic of the assembly like this is saying, it's so highly of the assembly.
I'm impressed. We went to the report and these parties and collected all the recommendations. And Charlie, when you look at the recommendations, you will see practically they have touched every state institution. From the office of the president to the judiciary to the National Assembly to ministries to departments, agencies, but also legal and institutional reforms. For example, a recommendation saying now the National Assembly should put in a mechanism for white paper implementation. They have been rebuked, and I'm one of the
white paper is fairly that's just the property of the state and the
executive. Yes, is the executive's position in terms of what they will do with the report. But then, you see, the Jammeh Commission report, which I had written way back in 2019, that Jammeh Commission is not an executive report. The president, under Section 200 of the Constitution, has a right to set up a commission. But when you set it up, it's a national institution. And particularly at the time this commission came, as part of our transitional justice system, that commission and its report do not belong to the president or the executive alone. They are a national document. And I had argued, and I saw the lead counsel, Bensouda, also rebuke them in her testimony, that they should have requested that white paper to come and table it, because any white paper, the Jammeh Commission white paper, report itself, which has also raised a lot of legal, institutional, constitutional issues, serious reforms. should have come in National Assembly so that there is parliamentary approval and necessary steps taken for its implementation. Probably we wouldn't be here today. So the president, and that is also my disappointment in the former Justice Minister and the current Justice Minister. All right. After the JRC inquiry, after the Jammeh Commission inquiry, they should have advised the president, look, this is a national document. Take it to this National Assembly so that it is a national conversation on this.
I see.
But that they failed to do that.
I see.
And then we sat there, and then we are here today talking about. So I commend the committee in the area of recommendations they made. Very good recommendation, and this is why we captured those ones quickly. And I hope each and every Gambian would go through those recommendations one by one.
We'll come to the recommendations. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you are impressed with the scope of the work and the analysis.
Yeah.
But we still haven't answered. In your impression, are we getting closer to knowing exactly what happened? Because, I mean, for all the purposes, people still are saying that they are not yet clear in the know as to what happened exactly to the properties.
Well, I mean, the fact that the commission happened, as I said, it will generally, for everything we may know, what we need to know. But I think we are closer. It's still a step closer.
Okay.
Because now, as I said, we have seen a lot of specific things, and we know where those properties are, who has those properties, or what is happening with those properties. So you look at the bank accounts, for example. It is news to many of us to realize that all these bank accounts actually exist, or are exist and are still open and they're closed. And the amount of monies that are in there, in foreign currencies, millions. I mean, it's shocking. So, we are closer to it. I think now the onus is on the president for us to actually answer that question. Because in the recommendations there are a lot of recommendations of actions to be taken to investigate further. Certain individuals, certain institutions, for certain institutions to provide certain documentation.
That is where the problem. So if those institutions and processes are government, and now you are asking the government to investigate that thing, where do you think we?
So now is also when the National Assembly has to prove themselves. I know through this committee they have really proved themselves a lot, but that is not complete until implementation of the recommendations are done. And I saw when at the discussion of the report, they have suggested a resolution in terms of the monitoring and implementation of this report. Now, and I think the chair of the committee, Honorable Abdullah Sise, and the members, this is where they should complete the history they have made in this country. That we've not just done a good job and we've submitted that report, but we are going to stand as representatives of the people, as members of this committee, as citizens of this country, to make sure impunity does not prevail. Because what has been happening since 2019 has been impunity. Because injustices happened, looting took place, conflict of interest, abuse of the law, and so on. Nothing happened. And to allow that to continue is impunity. So the onus now is on Honorable Abdullah Sise and the 5 other members of his committee or 6 other members of his committee to say, look, our work will not go in vain. Yes.
Okay. Let's look at the recommendations, rather the observations, the failures, and the recommendations, to be taken, should be taken. You mentioned the Ministry of Justice. I saw that the report is critical of both the former minister and even the current Minister of Justice. It says Mr. Tambadu should be, what did he say? Should be criminal or economic charges or so should be brought against him. And the current Minister, Yaya Jammeh, said should be reprimanded. You mentioned fundamentally, in tandem with the report, that the system they used was messy, and this other one continued with that system.
So I think it's unfortunate the former Minister of Justice handle this in the way he did. I think he should have known better. As I said, in the work that this committee did, if you look at the exchanges in the report between the two former ministers, Justice and Finance, between Batambedu and Mambure, you can see that Tambedu was overstepping his bounds, was disregarding the law.
Even after he was warned.
Yeah, and I think that is very serious. Yes, and I think he should be held account for that. And for me, that also explains the whole mess. Yeah. Because if at that moment they couldn't agree as to how to approach this, and of course there is clear legal, policy, institutional setup to, in how to do this, you ignore that, then everything else is going to be wrong. So for me, Tambeli more than anyone bears responsibility for this mess we are in, because the first step was just wrong.
But didn't he said, and I don't know whether that is captured in the report, whatever he did in the process was in consultation or with approval of either cabinet or the ministerial committee.
Yes, so
how much of responsibility was put on those two bodies by the report?
Yeah, it's sad. If anything, I mean, it's a bulky report and I'm still reading it, and also jumping from here and there. If anything, I have reservations about the report. It's only that one part. The fact that in the recommendations, the ministerial committee was not featured.
Was not even featured.
Yes, I think. I mean, the members of the ministerial committee, I think they should have been held to account. But that still does not reduce the gravity of Tambedu's actions, because he was the main man, he was the focal point as the Minister of Justice. Yes, and and of course directly responsible with the Jamano Commission itself, and providing he should be updating the cabinet appropriately, in full, honestly, and also guiding and advising the president. So and that depends on him individually more than anyone else. Yes, and so I think I'll still hold him to account. But also the ministerial committee members, you are there for a purpose, to oversee the whole process as well. And you should also be able to distinguish what is right and what is wrong, and to stand on the side of law and transparency and accountability. So their failure to do that, for me, that is negligence. That is dereliction of duty, for which the ministers who were in the ministerial committee should have been held to account. So that part, I mean, is something I don't appreciate.
Total absence of whatever observations on the ministerial council in the report you are disappointed with.
Yeah, in terms of the recommendations, I think they have highlighted the role, the function of the ministerial committee and so on. But in the recommendations, though, they had said the ministerial committee should submit all their, more or less, their ministry reports and documents. So, I mean, so that is there. But then I think that should be individual responsibility. The specific ministers who were there, I think Minister of Tourism, Muhammad Ba, Minister of Lands at the time, Musa Drame, Agriculture Minister, I think was Fabre, and I think these three ministers, as I said, I'm still reading the report, but I think they should have been held individually responsible for their failure in the ministerial committee, in addition to Bar. And I completely agree with the former councillor, MP, NAM, Bakari
Baji. The one from Bondali.
I mean, in his submission, that the Minister of Justice should be dismissed. For maintaining what is right.
Yes. But the report only said reprimanded.
I mean, and I don't know how you reprimand a minister. I mean, these are National Assembly members who should have said, we are going to censor. Because there is that power to censor in the National Assembly, to remove a minister for misconduct, for underperformance, for violation of the Constitution. And I think Brunch had not taken over in 2020, had enough time to correct, the anomalies.
They don't blame him for not correcting.
But to maintain those things, so eventually perpetuated. The looting, the injustice, the corruption, that surrounds these assets. And for that, I think he doesn't deserve to hold that office anymore. Yes, that's my position. It also made
Some people in the Attorney General's chambers, like the former registrar, etc., made some recommendations.
Yeah. I mean, so I think, as I said, I agree with the report. The one thing I would have loved to see in it was the issue of the ministerial committee members. All right, but there are other recommendations which I think could have been stronger. Like one, the case of Jah Oil, the Minister of Justice.
Yes.
But also, I think the case of the registrar or the sheriff, they are referring the thing to the JSC.
Yeah.
For disciplinary action or maybe reprimand.
Yeah.
No, I don't see any justification why those people should hold public office again.
Oh.
Public office is sacred. Yes, public office is our lives. That is at stake. Yes. Public office, there is no excuse, no second chance for it.
Right.
If you cannot do it right,
You gotta
get out. Yes, because your single mistake or failure to do what is
Cost the nation.
can kill people. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
How many people have lost their assets because of this?
Yeah.
For decades, Jammeh took their assets.
Yeah.
They have been plunged into poverty, into misery, and now we get to this point, and they are still looking at their assets simply because one person holding a position as minister or registrar or sheriff or this failed to do what they're supposed to do. And then somebody is suffering for that all the way down somewhere in Boraba or Kerewan or in Basse or somewhere. Why should that be?
Yeah, indeed.
So for me, when it comes to public office, there is no compromise. If you cannot perform, leave. Knowing that your single mistake, you can kill, you can take lives, you can destroy futures. I mean, look at how young people died in the battle. Why do you think it's happening? It's not because they are not familiar. It's because somebody in the public office is failing to do what they are supposed to do, to create opportunities, to save lives, to build hope and so on, and leading to deprivation and poverty. But some people get a point so desperate that they feel they have to go through the back way. If only 1, 2, 10 people are going through the back way, we can dismiss that.
Right.
To say they must be crazy.
But thousands.
You have thousands incessantly with all the deployment of the forces of this country, with the forces of Europe, still
Going.
people say they are going, then something is fundamentally wrong in this society.
Absolutely. Now, let's go to the recommendation, rather the implementation problem. That's where the problem is. Look, the governments, I think even the president said at the time that much of what has been revealed at the time he didn't know. But after this investigation, perhaps he would have known a lot now. Do you expect him to take actions in terms of implementation?
Well, if you go by his track record, there is no expectation he will do anything because he's notorious for failing promises, reneging on his obligations and abandoning his commitments.
Maybe this could be an exception.
So here is an opportunity for him to remake himself. And for the first time practice what he preaches. Cham, I'm really disappointed, and I don't know what kind of recommendation would have been fitted, but I'm really disappointed that the president would make the statement he made on 14 May 2025 that he doesn't know some of the things that will happen, stuff like that. No, that is unacceptable. All right, that is utterly unacceptable, and it's a gross failure of leadership. And for me, therefore, beyond bar, the person responsible for all this mess is the president himself. You set up this commission, you are given a report, you issue the white paper. You cannot sit there and we go all this while, if not for the republic and the youths, we could have lived like this for 100 years. End of story. I think that is a gross dereliction of duty by the president, and it is shameful. So when we get to this point, it's now probably 72 hours since this report was approved by National Assembly.
Yeah.
And we did not hear the president.
Anything. Okay.
And I'm sure his handlers would say, but it is just a report, we just see it in the media. But when the Republic came out, when Ghana came out, they did not write a letter to you to speak. You came out on your own. Right. So, and you said as the president that you would have undertaken a measure to deal with this.
Yeah.
But now that the parliament has said they'll set up this, you wait for that. And so for me, within 1 hour of the parliament approving this,
or maybe would have even known about it even before the parliament.
fine, yeah, but even if you don't know, but 1 hour, within 1 hour of the parliament concluding this, we should have seen a statement on Facebook or a national address by the president
welcoming the report.
Yeah, without even taking any decision. But say, we welcome, we congratulate the National Assembly for doing this, and we welcome, now we will wait for to receive the report from the National Assembly and take it. But nothing. 72 hours, the president said nothing. That is again another manifestation of poor leadership, and that further, cements my conviction that he is not going to act on this. All right. So, but we are watching him.
What do you take to the politicians? Because they have the political reactions to the rest of our business. But both sides of the actually, many part of the political field has been reacting to this. If you listen to the APRC, for example, now I should say no to alliance, because the other APRC hardly talk with the same fervor, enthusiasm than they used to be about these assets now. But if you listen to those in the no to coalition, they will say, look, you know what? It will take a new government to be able to know the truth of Jammeh's assets, because according to them, allegedly, the whole entire ministry of the government are all implicated in the disbursement of these assets. Will you take that to be?
I will not dismiss their claim. I think there is validity to it.
That it could only take another government, not this government.
Not only, but it may have to take another government, simply because the track record of this government, particularly this president, gives no confidence that there'll be justice as he claimed, in 2025. So now I think what the Noto Alliance is doing is now challenging the president to prove himself. So I hope the president listens to them very well and prove them wrong, and not to prove them right. Yes, and that goes for myself as well, and I guess many other Gambians. Let's see whether the president will prove us right. Yes, but of course, what we know from 2017 to date is that this president is a champion in fulfilling promises, commitments, and obligations.
Well, still with the report, some people said even this committee itself doesn't have all information on all of Jammeh's properties. That there are properties over there that may not have been covered by even the Jah Commission, let alone this commission. For example, when they started to go out on inventory, you remember when they had to go out and at one point they even said the press should not be involved with that. You remember that?
Yeah.
Do you think this committee really have got on top of the full list inventory of Jammeh's properties?
Cham, somehow this committee has become my darling. But I mean, so let's just say, in a way, they cannot be blamed for that when you look at their terms of reference, because they are looking at the assets identified by the Jah Commission.
Yeah.
So if the Jah Commission had not identified other assets, may be either beyond their purview or they will be constrained, limited to get to know those ones. Even though, as I said, it appears in the background, their team also went on a serious fact-finding exercise and brought out a lot of information. So they might have come across other assets not even identified by the Jah Commission. All right. But that all goes to the point that, yes, can we know the extent of the entire Jammeh assets, simply because of those limitations, but it is just for people to also recognize the committee has a terms of reference. Yes, and so that even when we analyze their work, we are aware of their terms of reference. Otherwise, I think we may raise expectations that would be unfounded here.
Okay, you and they also mentioned not only the Ministry of Justice, there are other areas there are failures.
Yeah, many.
For example, livestock.
Yeah.
When you take what was your comment? Because according to the livestock, where we used to call it marketing board, but now it's Department of Livestock.
Yeah.
They too had a fair amount of criticism from the committee in failures. Let's highlight that. What are your perspectives for that? So they couldn't account for the number of cattle that actually were purchased, or rather were owned by Jammeh and disposed of.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what has also come out, and I guess this goes back to the exchange between Tambedu and Mamburenjai. You know, and in the testimonies also you can see that the role of institutions.
Yes.
You know, and I think I must have heard the director of Gilma probably talking about yes, a court order was given, but they have not received any letter or direction to say take control of this or that and so on. And you know, and if you look at the sale of, let's say, the cattle, the way and manner it is done, you can see sometimes the commission, General Commission itself is the lead, or sometimes Ministry of Justice, or you know, and so on. So that it goes to show the disorganized nature of our state setup. You know, and this is not to hold brief for Gilma, but just to highlight the fact that, and that is the good thing about this report.
Gilma being Gambia Livestock Marketing Agent.
Yeah, the good thing about this report is that it has raised recommendations that speak to the function of Gilma, of institutions, you know, but also not just their function, but also in terms of what kind of mechanisms, tools they need to put on. So, for example, in Gilma, you know, just trying to read the recommendation here, number 97, it says the committee recommends that the government ensure that Gilma is equipped with appropriate technical tools and equipment necessary for livestock valuation, monitoring, and asset management, and that livestock valuation methodologies used by government agencies conform to recognized technical and professional standards. So this is just showing you the
inquiry itself is covered.
That our institutions don't have capacity. And why don't they have capacity? Because that also goes to the accountability issue. Because sometimes you don't have capacity, not because they did not train you or give you a tool, but you refuse to create them so that you can perpetuate corruption.
Yeah, that's
because there can be an excuse here, but we don't have a valuation tool. I mean, what do you need to create a valuation tool? You don't need to go to heaven to pick it. No, you don't need to go to Japan to get a valuation tool. So as Gilma, you should have had those tools in place, but you refuse to do so. And you will find what is in Gilma is what you will find in Gamtel, in Nawek, in ports, every institution, ministry you go, this is what you find there.
We don't have this.
We don't have this. We are making this. What do you need to do that? So when we set up the Edward Francis Small Institute Center for Rights and Justice, one of the first things I make sure we do is to create policies, institutional policies and guidelines. So that for every decision action we make, it is not based on the imagination of Madi Jobarteh. Yes, it is guided by certain standards, yes, certain procedures, certain rules. This is how you run an organization or institution. But you go to our public institutions, 60 years after independence, they don't have basic tools because of it's nothing other than corruption, abuse of office, and then more consequences.
It also talk about the most important receiver. It says the receivership contract should end. That's to say the least about Alpha Capital.
Yeah.
The receiver.
Yeah.
What do you make of those committee? What's your perspective about that?
Appropriate. Yeah. I mean, because I sat here. I mean, when I read the report, paying the receiver 15 million, and I started trying to figure out, okay, what was the receiver actually doing? What kind of work? And Jam, he wasn't there to build a company. No, he was not there to mine anything, to runs down a mountain. He wasn't there to, run a company to be profitable. It's just to safeguard this company as they are right now. The basic paperwork was moved to.
And so independence and
but I mean, the company, state enterprises, or things that are given, you just keep them. It doesn't mean you don't have to come every morning and clean them. You just keep them, and then you pay 115 million. What is the rationale for that? And then of course,
you mean there are existing government agencies that can do that?
Of course. That should have done that.
But isn't that where the trouble we had at government agencies, even in the report, we are found to be really in gross failure of their mandate. So it should, rather the minister then is justified, to get somebody outside government quarters as a receiver. Yeah. So imagine what would have happened if those government agencies were the ones responsible for the...
Yeah, so what it will lead to, Cham, is, of course, what we are seeing, and that culture of abuse that this country has been living with within the state since independence to date. So that that abuse has cost us to the point of us going to hire a private enterprise to do work that state institutions should have done, and then take the people's money, over 100 million, and give it for that. Right. And then only to come and realize, in fact, the way and manner that was done, because that's a recommendation also to say that through the investigation in how the justice minister gave that contract to the Alpha Capital to ensure that there is no corruption there. All right. So at the end of the day, Cham, the nation has lost. Yes. So Alpha Capital, true to their credit, he had told the commission that he had brought over $1 billion of sales from Jammeh's assets into the special account at the central bank. Over $1 billion. Yeah. Which the government spent, leaving only 100 million at the time of his testimony. Yeah. So it's only the company. Yeah. So which any state agency could do. Because we've just been dealing with the GLM, which could not even account for the number of cattle. Imagine if they are supposed to be the receiver for. Right. So the assets were there, and they were to be sold. Some were sold through the receiver. Some were sold through the Jamano, yeah, and other places, and the proceeds have been obtained. So depending on what kind of assets the value of them, you see one would have much more money than the other. All right. But the fact that you sold up to 1 billion is still not a justification for today, because that could have been done, as I said, by a properly organized state agency. All right. I know the issue of AMRC was there. I think AMRC should have been engaged to do that. The idea that the AMRC was a subject of the commission, therefore should not be given that role, I don't buy that argument. Yeah. So but also, even if you have to hire a private enterprise to do this, it's questionable for me still. What is the justification for that amount of money paid to a private entity to do this? So
the Attorney General said the contract was not given because of the base that the two of them knew each other or something, or there are some relation.
Well, in the report it is said that the whole thing started when they met in Mecca. Right. So
so the report is right to suggest that the two had a relationship.
All right. So it is strange for two people to meet in Mecca and then only to come and over millions of dollars. So, but that is all the more reason the committee said, look, there needs to be investigation in this, and I guess a lot of other information that they have gathered to say the state should not do business with this entity again. So once again, just highlighting the abuse that has been, that it also says, well, it said some of the staff in the Jammeh Commission, it talk about them, like in the case of the lead counsel, it was said there could have been a conflict of interest. What's your perspective on that? Yeah, so conflict of interest is in terms of, it can be perceived or actual. Yes, and I read the part that analyzed that because the lead counsel was counsel for social security, which was subject
Part of
that.
subject,
Yeah. So that creates a perceived conflict of interest.
Yeah.
One can say, yeah, but probably that can happen. Now, the next thing I was looking for in the report to say, therefore, was there any actual action
misdemeanor
by the lead council in a way that favors social security protection
or shield or protect
in any way?
Yeah.
So that actual act, would have sufficed to say you cannot be lead council, therefore, or should have been removed at that time.
Okay.
All right. But also, I read in the report exchanges on that, and I think there's a line where the lead council, either the lead council or Atemiru was saying they've recognized that, but sort of, if that would be a conflict of interest, like the lead council would recuse herself.
Excellent.
I think I read something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that has the question in me. Okay, but also, have they created was there any disclosure? Because in conflict of interest, there's also disclosure. It appears, okay, it's common knowledge. Abi Bensuda is the counsel for, but again, was that a written disclosure? As a matter of formality, as a matter of law, to say from the lead counsel to the Jammeh Commission or to the Ministry of Justice that I'm disclosing that I'm the commission.
I'm the legal representative for
So I'm not sure I saw anything like that.
Okay.
For me, at this stage, I won't make a big fuss about the conflict of interest of the lead counsel, because my interest is in actual fact the conflict of interest happened in the way the lead counsel conducted with the Social Security when it appeared before the commission or in the course of the commission.
Which there's no such suggestion anyway.
Yeah. So, but it is important to recognize that there is perceived conflict of interest here.
Again, with the staff members of the Jammeh Commission, it was Mamadi Quran who handled the sale of the tractors. He's been observed by the report to be incompetent. They said the handling of the $10 million that passed through him through the sales of the tractors should have been either been transferred to a bank or shouldn't have been, kept by a particular individual. They gave it a word of incompetence. I've seen what's your perspective of that? From the political view, because these topics I'm talking about, the politicians have gone to town with their own interpretations. But as a neutral person, how did you see that?
Yeah, so that would not suffice for me. Incompetence, therefore. Yes, you have this money should have been saved. It wasn't saved, so therefore you are incompetent. I think that is too quick, or as such. So I think Quran has, of course, is well qualified, like academically or professionally speaking.
Exactly.
To run this position. Okay, but then of course, when you come to run this position, how did you run it? Okay, so this is one instance you just raised in terms of this money.
Yeah.
But what are the other issues that the commission has based on its analysis? You say that it's an indication of incompetence. All right. So for me, I'm yet to be fully convinced about the issue of incompetence, but also I would say I may not also be surprised or still for a commission to say that, because I've seen accounts which seem to say, because you created an institution, which is training people, Gambians, so therefore you cannot be incompetent. So it doesn't necessarily follow.
Right.
Yes, I can create an institution, for a small center for justice, and do it very well, but then you can give me Kirfatu to run, and I can run it. Or another institution, because also institutions are institutions, but institutions also are unique and stuff like that. So that is speaking generally about it, and other than that, I think the conclusion that he is incompetent I would have to see a lot more to, confirm. I mean, to confirm that. You may say misconduct, for example, or misconduct or even negligence, which at a certain rate make constitute incompetence. But then actions that because at the end of the day, yes, we all can make mistakes and stuff like that, or fail in deadlines and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But it has to be a certain kind of consistency pattern for us to say then therefore you are incompetent. Yeah. So I'm glad to see that kind of argument.
Yeah.
As it is. But again, like the lead counsel issue, conflict of interest, I'm not really.
You haven't seen sufficient evidence.
Yeah, I'm not really bothered about those ones. Yeah.
Okay. Now, overall, the report says there was no central control in the assets disposal. Each unit was doing their own thing. I mean, is that not where the whole problem started? Now, no central control of this. Each department or each unit can do their own thing. According to the report, that is what led to some of these things.
And so that highlights again the role, the function of the Minister of Justice, the ministerial committee, and even to the level of the cabinet or the president.
Yes.
I think that is their failure. Yes. They should have merchandised a system in place to run this. And I think,
for example, a single body like the AMRC.
Yeah, I mean the AMRC. But even if you say, okay, AMRC is this and that, nothing prevents the state to go and create an institution through an act of parliament.
And said this is what.
Yeah. So Jamano could have advised the president, as we submit our white paper.
Yeah.
I mean, we will also create an implemented monitoring mechanism for this.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the Jammeh Commission, they were wise enough to identify the National Human Rights Commission as the monitoring body to monitor the implementation. So that even though the implementation, because for all these commissions, still the focal point for implementation is the Ministry of Justice. All right, and I've seen they've even created what they call post-TRRC unit.
Exactly.
All right, so but they also created a body over there to monitor the implementation. Now, if you look at the Jammeh Commission, no suggestion like that was made. Okay, which is fine. But then the white paper is now responding to the Jammeh Commission report and determining what they will take or not take. That means therefore they are taking responsibility for implementation, and naturally they should have put in place the necessary mechanism for that implementation, and apparently that has not happened. And I guess that explains all the mess we are in, and particularly if you put also in the background the exchange between Tambedu and Mamure. So maybe that would have also addressed things, because if that happens, if you see in the report also, you will see a recommendation talking about in any sale, government sales, the accountant general should be present.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So it appears that was not the case. So if Mamure and Batembedu had agreed, as Mamure was suggesting, so one could say then the accountant general would have probably been present, through the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, and the whole monies issue would be, probably better controlled, because now we have even got to a point where this 1.3 billion that was generated through the sales and lodged in the central bank. But Batambedu reported that to Parliament in sometime 2019 or 2020. 2019 probably, to say that is there. But today that money is not there.
It's only 100, according to the central bank governor. It's only 100 and a little over 100 million left.
Right. So the question now is, who was overseeing that account? Was it Minister of Justice or Minister of Finance or the Ministerial Committee? Who took the money out?
The accountant general, obviously.
All right. I mean, on whose orders, and for what purpose? Because also, Cham, the whole idea of the transitional justice process, and it came out from the TRRC, that the reparation should come from the proceeds from the sale of Jammeh assets. And Cham, if we had controlled this matter as it should,
all the victims would have had reparations.
The proceeds would have paid reparations. But the reparations in the Janet TRRC report is like 200 million.
260 million.
Yeah. And we're talking about just 1 billion. One little sector of sales 1 billion.
1 billion. Yeah.
You know, remember the millions in dollars, pounds, and euros. We already talked about it. The Jammeh's residents in Potomac.
That's right.
Yeah. So that we have enough money to pay reparations, to set up the hybrid court, which they said should be
90 million. That's $60 million.
$60 million.
Yeah.
And we have already
dollars in the account.
Millions of dollars in the So meaning the Jammeh assets was enough to do reparations, to do memorialization. We would have everything. We would have built all monuments through that money. We would have, created, the court. Renovate the prisons, everything.
It would have funded itself.
Yeah. So we would not need any donor funding. We would not be there crying about, seeking help anywhere. Yeah. So, Cham, this is why when you look at this matter in its proper context, every citizen should be furious.
Absolutely.
And the plunder and the abuse and then the arrogance that followed. For the abuse and, misconduct in this matter.
Yeah, that's why you are right. The victims were all outraged when they learned from the governor of the central bank that 1.2 billion or so have been raised from Jammeh's assets, and they were not compensated.
Yeah.
That's just one example of it.
Yeah.
Right. Finally, to put the curtain down on the program, what does this inquiry teach us?
Jam,
as a nation.
One, this inquiry should make us all be aware, recognize, accept, acknowledge that our republic has been a failure since independence, not just since 2020 or 2017 or 1994, but since independence. This plunder you see, billions we are talking about, but Cham, open the Auditor General's report, you will see billions being plundered. Open any government report, you would see abuse of office, abuse of power. Open any police report, you see our public institutions, public officials, the way they are just plundering our resources and our affairs, our lives, without any consequence. And I think if governments are taking their time to reflect, to look at their lives all over again, what it should teach us is to say vigilance. Yes, that each and every one of us, this is the time that we need to be vigilant, because what is at stake is our very life and our future. That is what is at stake. Child, I know of victims, you know victims, everyone knows victims who were shot in 2000. 25 years later today, they are still in pain. Who did that? Public institutions, public officials. Not to mention those who were killed.
Absolutely.
All right? Not to mention those denied opportunities that they are dying in the back way. Not to mention Daniel, I just saw the Minister of Health say 894 giving back to Gambia. Why?
and he was speaking.
We are making success.
Yes, as if that was a mark of progress.
By 2026, 60 years of our independence, we should not accept even one Gambian more than 9.
Yes, that's right.
Giving back to a Gambia. So this is the tragedy of this country. And this is why the lesson we have to draw from this is that we have to be vigilant as citizens. And for me, as a citizen, but also as Edward Francis Small, that is the rationale. That we are in this mess not because we lack knowledge. Our public officials, they have all the knowledge, they have all the experience, they have traveled around the world with our money to say they are going to gain something, and they come here and plunder our resources just like that. Give us poor quality resources, goods and services, and life goes on like that. And so for me, what this report means, it is one more time, because this is not the first time. It is one more time exposing to us the bastardization of the wealth and the life and the future of this country by a few minority we have elected or appointed and put in public office. with impunity, treating us as if they are not even Gambians. I mean, this parliament released this report. Well, it was even last year they released the Russian petroleum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like a couple of months back.
Yeah. Foreigners came with their petrol in our waters, brought it inside our country, sell it as they want to sell it, use our public institutions and private institutions, get their money and go out and nothing happens.
And they didn't even pay tax.
And you now, have you seen the government's response to the National Assembly petroleum report?
Oh yeah.
I think it's scandalous. So these people who are holding public office, and most of them don't give a damn about the Gambia, about Gambian lives, about Gambian people, about the future of this country. They are there for such.
The parliamentary report on that case actually identify individuals.
Yes, and in the government's report they said those ministers acted within their powers, according to law. Well, it is very blatant that they did not.
Yeah, it is true.
But as I said, every report, look at the investigative journalists, the reports they are producing.
Absolutely.
So the lesson is very clear. It is for governments to take a decision. Do we want to go on and live this life, or do we want a better Gambia? All right. And every now and again, not the people there, not foreigners, but our own people we elect and appoint. They are the same ones who come and tell us we are not doing it right. Those are what in the report.
Absolutely.
Who created this report? The people we elected.
People we elected. Yeah.
Who created the other commission? The people we elected.
Yeah.
Who created TRNC? The people we elected. What did they look at? What the people we elected and appointed did?
Yeah.
Like Yaya Jammeh, like Salamanjang. The junglers, the economic junglers, military junglers, the parliamentary junglers, what they did.
Exactly.
It was what they showed us in the other commission report. The son of TRRC is what they showed us in TRRC. How they kill our own government people. Now we came and do the Jammeh commission report. And now they set up the commission to tell us how they destroy our. So, when you look at that, you begin to wonder, these governments, what is wrong with them? And we see over here people fighting over incompetence and conflict of interest for one man or one woman.
Let's
see the real picture.
The real picture actually is reported that millions and billions in dollars have gone uncounted.
Ordinary people like you and me, because the people mentioned here are your friends like my friends.
Exactly.
People we live together in the same compound, in the same neighborhood, in the same schools.
Exactly.
We now say, Cham, you are now a minister or a director, and Madi, you are now the watchman there or the security man, and you behave like you are something else.
Indeed. What a nation.
Sometimes, Cham, I say only God knows what kind of Gambian he created, but I don't understand Gambians at all. This report should have seen Gambians get up and occupy the middle of Bangladesh and demand accountability right now. This is not country. This is Barrow's country alone. This is not Abdulaziz's country alone. This is not Tombo's country alone. It's my country, you and me and my children and your children and your father and my father and everyone's father and mother.
Absolutely.
How can one man say that you pay our resources because you have a title, you have a position, you have a right? You should not get out of budget and in the middle of budget and demand accountability, otherwise nothing works.
Of course we can do it peacefully. Well, Madi Jobarteh, of course, as ever, the combative type who will approach things in the most pragmatic way as possible. Well, we thank you very much for coming from the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. Thank you very much for your perspective on the report of the Select Committee of the National Assembly on the disposal of Jammeh assets. Now the report is out and the nation is studying it and the media will be serializing it. We hope we will have an opportunity to come back here to take a closer look at the reports. For now though, that will be all in the brunch this week. We wish you, for those, of course, we may not come here on next week perhaps because of the quality. But in advance, we wish you a happy quality. Until we come back your way again, goodbye.
Jah Oil ñoom ñoo jiitu si wàllum jaay essence si biir réew mi te ñu def ko warugal pour kontaan loo suñu client yi boroom moto yi ak driver yi seen jaaxare jeex na léegi pour am essence bu baax ak njëg bu yomba lii sax moo tax ñu amal leen banxaas fépp si biir réew mi pour essence bu baax bu set benn place rek la muy Jah Oil soo soxlae essence bu set essence bu baax gasoil wala kérosine naa la wax ne Jah Oil rek mooy jëmukaay ga doxantul rek si bépp banxaasi Jah Oil nga am si bànneex ak Jah Oil seen bànneex mooy suñ taxawaay moo tax ñu amoon leen banxaas bépp si biir réew mi nim gën a yombee pour yow ak suñ liggéeykat yu xarañ yi naa la won ne mbégte rek nga see jël pour am essence bu baax pour say machine fenn place rek la mooy sa Jah Oil ak Jah Oil bànneex kese la moo tax sax suñ station si nekk ca Coastal Road ak Banjul wàññil nañ leen njëgi essence bi foofu noonu pour am si lu leer mun ngaa call si 770-8080 322-9070 714-7273 wala 787-1321 Jah Oil, the pride of the nation.
Traveling has never been this simple in the Gambia. Oh yes, you don't need to visit the GTSC depot just to get a ticket. Just download the Yona Wallet app today and enjoy hassle-free bookings. With Yona Wallet, you can buy your GTSC bus ticket right from your phone, anytime, anywhere. From Kanifing to Dakar, Dakar to Banjul, or up-country routes like Kanifing to Basse and Basse to Banjul, Yona Wallet has you covered. No queues, no stress. Just safe, fast, and convenient ticketing at your fingertips. Choose comfort. Choose convenience. Choose GTSC with Yona Wallet. Yona Wallet. Your money, your way. GTSC. Moving the nation forward. For more information, please call 1124 or 221-1668.
Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
Agada
Mbijano aganyadi.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la.
Ha, code nyingi.
Okay. Nsila ID soto.
Sa soto. Sorry. Agada.
Mbijano bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariaka.
Mbare.
Mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariaka.
Jannom Yona Forest de Bureau. Gambia tonkon na lo mbari ya bere. Birim koyna fo katon.
Bari si kodo kino katon nim fo bolong blabe.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Gambia kono anin Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 di nyonta andum fana nata another enterprise sotale golam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale le dadi mani domorol di fana beteata Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je
wo moyo diat
apelenta
ni wo ka ni na lafta nyelen kendol e binaji
yalo bu kanyi la ko la baraka ba
yalo ndel ciosano lo
abaraka